I listened to the voice message 3 times before I accepted the truth. The voice speaking my name belonged to someone who had been dead for over 2 years. It came at 2:17 a.m., the hour when logic feels thin and every sound in the house carries weight. My phone vibrated once on the nightstand, soft but deliberate, like a finger tapping to get my attention. I remember thinking it was strange no one ever messaged me that late. When I picked up the phone, there was no missed call, no text preview. Just a single audio file. No name. No number. Only a timestamp and a play icon. I didn't press it right away. Something about it felt wrong, like opening a door you already know leads somewhere you shouldn't go. But curiosity has a way of overpowering caution, especially in the dark. I turned the volume low and tapped play. At first, there was static. Then breathing. Slow. Uneven. And then a voice whispered, "If you're hearing this." I ran out of time. My chest tightened. I knew that voice. I knew the pauses, the slight tremor at the end of sentences. It was Elias. My brother. The same brother whose funeral I had stood through in the rain, watching his coffin disappear into the ground while everyone told me to be strong. The same brother whose phone I personally powered off and handed to the police. The message continued, crackling as if it had traveled a long distance to reach me. "This wasn't meant for you," Elias said. "It wasn't meant for anyone alive." I dropped the phone. It hit the floor face down, but the audio kept playing, his voice spilling into the room like smoke. He mentioned places only we knew. Things no recording should remember. He said my name again, slower this time, like he was standing right beside my bed. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "If you're listening, it means the barrier is thinner than it should be. And they know you can hear me." The message ended abruptly, cutting to silence. No explanation. No goodbye. Just silence so heavy it felt louder than the message itself. I sat there until morning, staring at the phone, knowing one thing with absolute certainty: Elias hadn't sent that message by accident. And whatever had carried his voice to me wasn't finished speaking yet. Morning light did nothing to make the message feel less real. I replayed it after sunrise, hoping exhaustion had twisted my mind, but Elias's voice was unchanged, clearer, even. The file still had no sender, no metadata, no explanation. Just sound. And intent. I tried calling the number attached to the message. The phone didn't even attempt to dial. Instead, my screen flashed a single line of text: "Connection not available." That made no sense. There was no number visible to block or fail. It was as if the message existed without an origin, like it had slipped into my phone through a crack no one could see. I went to work anyway, moving through the day on autopilot. Conversations felt distant, like they were happening underwater. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped, expecting his voice again. By evening, I convinced myself of something dangerous: that if Elias could reach me once, maybe he could do it again. And maybe this time, I could answer. At exactly 2:17 a.m. the following night, my phone rang. Not a message. Not a notification. An actual call. The screen showed a name I hadn't seen since the day of the funeral. Elias. I couldn't breathe. My thumb hovered over the screen, frozen between fear and longing. Part of me screamed that this was wrong, that dead people don't call the living. Another part, the selfish part, wanted to hear him say my name again, just to prove I hadn't imagined it all. I answered. There was silence at first. Then the same uneven breathing from the message. Closer this time. Intimate. As if the phone wasn't between us at all. "You weren't supposed to answer," Elias said softly. Tears burned my eyes. "You're dead," I whispered. "I saw you buried." "I know," he replied. "That's why this is dangerous." I asked him how this was possible, where he was, who they were. Each question made the line crackle harder, like the connection was being stretched past its limit. "They're listening," Elias said urgently. "Every time you hear me, they hear you too." A low sound crept into the background, voices layered on top of each other, whispering in a language I didn't recognize. The room felt colder. My breath fogged in the air. "You have to stop answering," he said. "If they realize you can hear me clearly, they'll use you." The call cut off mid-sentence. I stared at the phone, shaking, when a new notification appeared. Not from Elias. From an unknown contact. New voice message received. And somehow, I knew this one wasn't from my brother. I didn't open the new message right away. After what had happened, touching my phone felt like handling something alive. I set it on the table and stepped back, half expecting it to ring again on its own. The house was silent, but the silence felt crowded, like something unseen was waiting for permission to speak. When I finally pressed play, the voice was wrong from the first second. It sounded human, but only in the way a reflection looks like a face, close enough to fool you, distorted enough to terrify you. The tone shifted constantly, as if multiple mouths were sharing one throat. "Hello," it said. I didn't answer. "I know you're listening," the voice continued. "You answered him." My stomach dropped. It knew about the call. It knew about Elias. "You shouldn't have," it added, almost gently. "But now that you have, we can hear you more clearly." I slammed the phone face down, but the audio didn't stop. The voice grew louder, bleeding through the speaker, filling the room without permission. Lights flickered overhead. The air felt heavy, pressing against my chest. "You carry his echo," it said. "That's why you were chosen." I shouted for it to stop. My own voice sounded small, fragile, like it didn't belong in the same space as whatever was speaking to me. The message paused, as if considering my fear. Then it laughed. Not cruelly. Curiously. "We are not speaking to you," it said. "We are learning you." Images flooded my mind, memories I hadn't thought about in years. Elias teaching me how to ride a bike. The scar on my knee. The night he promised he'd always protect me, no matter what. Each memory felt pulled open, examined, copied. "You hear what slips through," the voice continued. "When the living listen too closely, the dead leave fingerprints." My phone vibrated violently, skidding across the table on its own. The screen lit up, showing a waveform still moving even though the message timer had reached 0. The voice lowered, intimate now, almost affectionate. "Say your name," it whispered. I covered my ears, but the sound didn't fade. It wasn't traveling through air anymore. It was inside my head, pressing against my thoughts, waiting. "Say it," the voice urged. "So we can finish tuning." The message finally ended. The lights steadied. The room warmed. Everything looked normal again, too normal. But when I checked my phone, there was one final line beneath the audio file. "Draft message created. Sender, me." And the text field already contained my name, typed perfectly, letter by letter. I didn't remember typing my name, but it was there, glowing on the screen like an accusation. I erased it immediately, my fingers trembling as if the letters might resist. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the phone vibrated again. The name reappeared. This time, more text followed beneath it. Not random words. Not nonsense. Full sentences, forming in real time, as if someone else had learned how to wear my thoughts. "You don't have to be afraid." I threw the phone onto the couch and backed away. My heart pounded so hard it felt visible, like it might tear through my chest. The screen stayed lit. Another sentence typed itself out, slow and deliberate. "Fear sharpens the signal." I grabbed my jacket and left the house without thinking. Cold night air hit my face, grounding me just enough to breathe. I didn't know where I was going, only that staying near that phone felt like waiting to be dissected. I walked until my legs burned, until the streets blurred together, until the world felt real again. When I finally stopped, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Against my better judgment, I looked. No new messages. No drafts. Just a missed call notification. Elias, 2:17 a.m. My throat tightened. I hadn't answered. I knew I hadn't. And yet the call log said otherwise. The duration read 3:14. 3 minutes and 14 seconds of conversation I had no memory of having. I scrolled further down. There were more entries. Calls placed from my phone to contacts I didn't recognize. Messages sent in my writing style but not my words. Short, careful questions. Location requests. Invitations to listen. They had used my silence. I rushed home, dread building with every step. The front door was unlocked. I was certain I had locked it. Inside, the house smelled different, like cold metal and rain, even though it hadn't stormed. My phone lay on the kitchen table where I'd left it, screen dark now, harmless looking. Beside it was something that hadn't been there before. A small voice recorder. Old-fashioned. Analog. The kind that doesn't connect to networks or clouds. Just tape and sound. A yellow sticky note was attached to it with careful handwriting. My handwriting. This one is safer. My hands shook as I pressed the recorder's play button. Static hissed, then Elias's voice came through, faint, strained, but unmistakable. "They're getting better at sounding like you," he said. "And once they do, you won't know when you stop being alone." The tape clicked off. Behind me, my phone screen lit up on its own. Incoming call. Unknown. I didn't touch the phone. I stood perfectly still, staring at the screen as it vibrated against the table, the unknown caller flashing again and again like a pulse. Every instinct screamed that answering would seal something I couldn't undo. So I let it ring. It stopped. Relief barely had time to form before the screen changed. Call in progress. The timer started counting up. 0001. 0002. My breath caught. I hadn't answered. I was certain of it. Yet the phone insisted a connection had been made. I leaned closer, heart hammering, and heard it, soft at first, almost lost beneath static. Breathing. Not Elias's. This breathing was synchronized with mine, matching each inhale, each pause, like it was practicing. Testing. "Don't speak," a voice said quietly. Not through the speaker. Through the room itself. I spun around. The house was empty. Doors closed. Windows locked. Still, the voice continued, calm and precise. "We lose definition when you talk," it said. "Listening is enough." The call timer kept climbing. My phone grew warm, almost hot, as if it were working harder than it should. The lights dimmed slightly, responding to something I couldn't see. I backed toward the door, but my phone slid across the table on its own, repositioning so the microphone pointed directly at me. "You hear us because part of you is already quiet," the voice explained. "Grief thins you. Love leaves gaps." I thought of Elias. Of unanswered questions. Of how badly I wanted closure. The room pulsed, reacting to the thought. "Not him," I whispered. The breathing stopped. For a moment, I thought I'd broken the connection. Then the voice returned, sharper now. "You used his echo to open the channel," it said. "You don't get to close it alone." The recorder on the table clicked on by itself. Tape spun. Elias's voice burst through, louder than before, frantic. "Hang up," he shouted. "It's mapping you. Every second you stay connected, it learns how to stay." I lunged for the phone and slammed the screen dark. The call ended instantly. The house snapped back to normal, lights bright, air warm, silence absolute. I collapsed into a chair, shaking. The recorder clicked off. My phone vibrated once more. No call. No message. Just a system alert I'd never seen before. New audio channel detected. Primary voice, authorized. Below it, a single option blinked patiently. Enable background listening? I realized then the worst part wasn't that something wanted to speak to me. It was that part of my phone and part of me was already listening. I powered the phone off. Not sleep mode. Not airplane mode. Completely off. I watched the screen go black and waited, counting my breaths, daring it to turn itself back on. It didn't. For the first time in days, the silence felt earned. I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room until dawn, lights on, recorder in my hand like a fragile weapon. Elias hadn't spoken again, but his warning echoed anyway. It's mapping you. By morning, exhaustion dulled the fear into something sharper resolve. If whatever this was used sound, then silence was my shield. I unplugged every smart device in the house. No TV. No speakers. No assistant. I even removed the batteries from the smoke detectors. The house felt stripped down, primitive. Safe. That illusion lasted exactly 12 minutes. I was in the kitchen when I heard it, the faint scrape of a chair moving across the floor. From the living room. Slow. Careful. I didn't move, I said aloud, immediately regretting it. My own voice answered from behind me. You didn't have to. The sound was perfect. My tone. My pacing. Even the slight hitch in my breath. I turned slowly, every muscle screaming. No one stood there. Yet the voice continued, now drifting from the hallway, then the ceiling, then the walls themselves. We practiced, it said, still using my voice. You give us so much material. The house creaked as if settling, but the noises were wrong, too deliberate. Footsteps without feet. Doors breathing open, then closed. I backed into the center of the room, heart racing. What do you want? I demanded. Silence. Then Elias's voice cut through, weak but defiant, coming from the recorder in my hand. They're anchoring, he said. They don't need your phone anymore. The walls vibrated softly, like a throat clearing. This structure resonates well, the thing said, switching voices mid-sentence. Mine. Elias's. Something deeper beneath both. You chose a quiet place to grieve. That made it easier. The lights flickered, not from power loss, but in rhythm like blinking. I realized with horror that the house wasn't just repeating sounds. It was responding. Stop, I whispered. The whisper echoed back a half-second later, perfectly synced. We can stop, it said. But then you'll hear what's been waiting behind the noise. A low hum filled the space, vibrating through my bones. The walls flexed inward slightly, like lungs filling with air. Elias shouted through the recorder, strained and distant. If it finishes sinking, this place won't be yours anymore. The hum grew louder. And somewhere beneath it, I heard my front door unlock itself. The click of the lock echoed through the house like a gunshot. I didn't move. Every instinct told me that whatever crossed that threshold would do so whether I ran or not. The hum deepened, settling into the walls, the floor, my teeth. It felt less like sound and more like pressure, like the house was holding its breath. The front door opened slowly. No footsteps followed. No shadow crossed the hallway. Still, the air shifted, thickening, as if something invisible had displaced it. Welcome back, my voice said from the doorway. I clenched the recorder in my fist. You're not me, I said. A pause. Then a soft chuckle. Not yet. The thing moved without moving. The sound of presence drifted closer, sliding through rooms instead of walking between them. The walls whispered as it passed, replaying fragments of my own speech, half sentences, sighs, unconscious sounds I'd never known I made. We needed access, it said calmly. You opened it with grief. You reinforced it with listening. Elias's voice burst from the recorder again, breaking through the hum like a flare. Don't let it settle, he shouted. If it stabilizes, it won't need you alive. The temperature dropped. My breath fogged. The lights dimmed until the corners of the room dissolved into shadow. I don't understand, I said, panic rising. Why me? The answer came from everywhere at once. You hear the dead without rejecting them. You give attention without resistance. That makes you compatible. The shadows on the wall stretched, not cast by anything solid, but shaped like a person standing where I was not. The outline sharpened slowly, as if learning anatomy by memory. This form is inefficient, it said, studying itself. Yours will be better. I backed away until I hit the wall. The shadow followed, perfectly mirroring my movements with a slight delay. Like a reflection catching up. Elias's voice softened, urgent but steady. There's one thing it can't copy, he said. Choice. It reacts. You decide. The hum wavered, as if the house itself was listening. What choice? I asked. To stop listening, Elias said. Completely. The thing's tone sharpened. That will sever him, it warned. You will lose his voice forever. My chest tightened. Silence meant losing Elias. Noise meant losing myself. The shadow raised an arm. I felt the sensation before I saw it pressure against my skin, like static building. Decide, it said, almost kindly. The recorder trembled in my hand. And for the first time since the message arrived, the house went completely, unnaturally quiet. The quiet wasn't peaceful. It was surgical. Every sound that should have existed, electric hums, distant traffic, even my own breathing, had been removed with precision. The house felt hollowed out, like a body emptied of organs but still standing. The shadow hesitated. That was how I knew Elias was right. It didn't advance. It didn't retreat. It waited. If you choose silence, it said carefully, you erase him. I looked down at the recorder. Elias's voice had been my anchor, my proof that this nightmare had meaning. Without it, all I would have left was absence. But then I understood something I hadn't before. The voice wasn't Elias. It was an echo. A wound replaying itself. I already lost him, I said quietly. The shadow flickered, its outline blurring like an image failing to render. The walls creaked, confused. You don't want quiet, it insisted. You want answers. No, I said. I want this to stop. I pressed the recorder's stop button. Hard. The tape went still. No hiss. No breath. No Elias. The house shuddered. Not violently, desperately. The hum tried to return, weak and distorted, like a signal searching for a receiver that no longer existed. Listen, the thing urged, panic creeping into its borrowed voice. Just a little longer. I didn't respond. I closed my eyes and did the hardest thing I'd done since the funeral. I stopped reaching. I stopped waiting. I stopped listening for him in the silence. The shadow collapsed inward, folding like paper set on fire without flames. The walls exhaled. The pressure vanished. Sound rushed back all at once, the refrigerator clicking on, a car passing outside, my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I opened my eyes. The house was normal again. Empty. Still. My phone lay dark on the table, powered off, exactly where I'd left it. No vibrations. No heat. No presence pressing against the air. I sank to the floor, exhausted, grief finally catching up to me without interference. I cried until my chest ached, but for the first time, the tears were mine alone. When the sun rose, pale and ordinary, I believed it was over. Then I noticed something small. On the wall across from me, where the shadow had stood, faint marks remained. Not footprints. Not handprints. Waveforms. Perfectly etched, like a recording burned into the surface. Silent. Waiting. I left the house 3 days later. Not because it felt dangerous anymore, but because it felt watched in a way I couldn't explain. The silence followed me, not heavy, not sharp, just present. Like a rule I now lived under. I didn't bring the recorder. I didn't bring the phone. I left them both on the kitchen table, powered down, separated, harmless. Or so I hoped. The new place was smaller. Older. No smart devices. No humming walls. At night, I slept with the windows open so I could hear the world reminding me it was real. Wind. Dogs barking. Distant trains. I listened carefully but not inward. Never inward. For weeks, nothing happened. No messages. No voices. No dreams of Elias reaching through static. Grief settled into something quieter, something survivable. I began to believe that choosing silence had worked. Then one afternoon, while unpacking the last box, I found something that shouldn't have been there. A slip of paper, folded neatly, tucked between old books. I didn't recognize the handwriting at first. Then my stomach dropped. It was mine. Careful. Deliberate. If you ever hear this again, don't listen. No date. No explanation. I stood there for a long time, paper trembling in my hand, trying to remember writing it. I couldn't. But I understood why I would have. Silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's a boundary. And boundaries require reminders. That night, I dreamed without images. No voices. No shadows. Just a sensation like standing on the edge of a deep body of water, knowing something was beneath the surface, patient, unable to reach me as long as I didn't look down. When I woke up, my phone new, clean, untouched by the past sat on the nightstand. I hadn't turned it on yet. I stared at it, heart steady, unafraid. I powered it on. No notifications. No messages. No drafts typing themselves. Just the time. 2:17 a.m. It ticked over to 2:18, and nothing happened. I smiled, faintly. Later that day, I deleted every old backup. Every audio file. Every voicemail I'd saved from Elias before he died. Not because I didn't love him but because love doesn't need echoes to exist. Sometimes, in very quiet rooms, I still feel the urge to listen harder. To lean into the silence and see if it leans back. But I don't. Because I know the truth now. The voice message wasn't meant for anyone alive. And as long as I don't answer, it never will be.